came to Alexander Haas in 2005 after being the Director of Museum Advancement at the High Museum of Art here in Atlanta. I had been part of a very successful $130 million expansion campaign at the High, but had done consulting previously and had found that was really a true love of mine. So I took a small sabbatical, a couple of months, had some time to me, and then I was invited to join the firm here. What I like about my work here is something that I'm sure my colleagues and other consultants also say, but it's working with the people who are the face of our clients. Most particularly, I get the most satisfaction out of working with the volunteers. We have a job, the people we work with have staffs and they have a job, but the volunteers are usually doing it out of their own free will and that graciously both give and take their time to be a part of this. And that's a very rewarding thing, and it's very rewarding to me personally. What challenges us, and I think everyone would say this if they were being honest, is the juggling of multiple clients, multiple objectives, travel. We all travel quite a bit, and so being in the air, on the road, traveling and keeping up with different clients, it's satisfying, and for me, it's a good thing because I have a fairly short attention span. So if I'm not interested in something at the moment, then I can switch over and do something else. But keeping all that up in the air, even with the technological tools we have, is definitely a challenge day to day. Having been in the field of advancement for a number of years and in consulting now for a combined 15 years, I very selectively read and listen to information. I subscribe to a couple of blogs, which are important to me. I work in the arts and culture field with museums, so I subscribe to the Center for the Study of the Future of Museums, which is a blog put out by the American Alliance of Museums, which is very interesting and often talks about things that have nothing to do with museums, but a lot to do with future trends and some things that are really kind of out there. So it's almost like working a puzzle. You read it, you learn something new, you find some things that are crazy, but you pick up some good tips. The other blog that I'm currently reading is one called Know Your Own Bone, B-O-N-E. And it's by a young woman also connected to the arts who uses a lot of data analysis and quantitative reasoning to point to trends in the business. She's young, she writes very forthrightly, and I always find something interesting to read there. The third blog that I read is BoardSource, because BoardSource is a national resource that makes a lot of its materials available free of charge or at very, very low cost. And it's designed to help trustees, board members, volunteers, and so it's a great way to see the kinds of questions that volunteers and others are asking of people in our field. As the concentration of wealth becomes more and more disparate, I think that's going to impact fundraising in very serious ways. And we're already seeing some trends of this. And they're not all bad trends. I'm not sure they're good for society, but they're not all bad trends for fundraising per se. But we already see gifts made with an enormous amount of wealth behind them. I think that will continue. At the same time, we're seeing grass level fundraising, grassroots fundraising, growing in terms of the number of people. I don't think it's growing really in terms of the number of average dollars as a gift. So let me give you an example. Crowdsourcing is very popular now. Text to give is very popular now. There's a disaster in Puerto Rico, Florida, Texas. People go to their phones. They make $10 gifts. By the time companies skim off the part of that they have for the processing, charity might have $2, $3, $5 at the most. That doesn't replace the act of sitting down and consciously making gifts month in and month out, year in and year out. So I worry about how we're training people, and I use the word consciously, training younger people to become philanthropists as opposed to becoming, buy this and we'll put $3 into this charity, give here. And it's wonderful. I mean, during Texas, when the pro football player, I can't remember his name, came out and, did the little video and raised $37 million. I mean, that's great. People were impacted by that. People who gave were impacted by that. But that's not going to replace learning how to give. And I'm a little worried that the younger generations, it makes me sound really old, but the younger generations are not learning how to give in the same way. I was very fortunate early in my career to go to work for a woman named Jenny Carter Smith, who was the senior vice president at CASE in DC. CASE, the Council for Advancement and Support of Education, is our national professionalized association for people in fundraising, alumni relations, and communications in higher ed and K through 12 education. Jenny was a great nurturer. She was a mentor. She was a mentor before I think people used that term, as a fashionable term. And I had gone to a summer conference that she taught, a week-long conference. We were at Notre Dame. And she took a real interest in me when I was very young and early in my career. She advised me to get an MBA at a time in the mid-'80s when not a lot of women were getting MBAs and not a lot of people who were in nonprofit work were getting MBAs. And I think she was very prescient in that, recognizing that that was a very good tool and credential to have. Never regretted that for a minute. She also took me under her wing. I worked for her for several years, and in my work with her, I was exposed to senior vice presidents, presidents, senior directors of development all across the country, people that it would have taken me years, maybe even decades, to have gotten to know. So one might say I was in the right place at the right time, but I look at it as that she gave me an opportunity to network on a daily basis. And in fact, that led to my coming to Atlanta the first time, which was in 1989, to become the Director of Advancement Services at Emory University, as they were entering into what was then the largest campaign they had ever done of $200 million. And I came in to organize the Advancement Services operation, which is all the back office things, technology, prospect research, budget, finance, gift accounting, alumni records, HR. And I organized that unit, had about 34 people reporting to me. So I went from being an executive assistant in a fast-paced environment, but with a national stage, to running a unit that, frankly, I don't think I would have had that opportunity had I not been at CASE and gotten the opportunity to work with people. The vice president who hired me in Atlanta, in fact, Jake Schrum, now a retired college president after 3 presidencies, he said, "You organize me as part of our meetings at CASE, and I know you can organize Emory." In fundraising, I'm most proud of the High Museum of Art's expansion because it was a vision by Renzo Piano, the Genoa-born architect, who's very well known around the country. And one of the things that Renzo Piano does very, very well is work with existing structures, existing museums, existing buildings. And he has just a gift for marrying 2 buildings together or fleshing out a campus. You can see his work at the Morgan Library in New York. In fact, one of the really good examples of this I see. But at the High, he took what we had, which was a star building, Richard Meyer designed building, and he took the Woodruff Art Center, which is kind of utilitarian building, does a lot of things inside, but not so great to look at outside. And he filled in the blanks. He designed a campus where we added 3 buildings to the complex, and not only designed a campus, he designed a new way of experiencing the arts in Atlanta. And it was great He was smart. The donors were lovely. The director, Michael Shapiro, worked 23 hours a day. And even though I was working about 20 hours a day because he was working 23, it was just a wonderful feeling. And even now when I go by there on Peachtree or have a chance to stop in, I feel like I had something to do with that. That's important. In consulting, the clients who aren't sure that they can make something work are the ones that I often found very satisfying, because we help them build their confidence without it being false confidence. And so I think that's a very interesting thing, but also a very good thing. And so I'm not going to single out any one client, but I would say every year I have one or two clients that weren't really sure they could make it work, and then they made it work. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that I'm passionately devoted to the culture of the South, the foodways of the South, the literature of the South, the music, certainly, of the South, and the way of life. I have an interest in family history, so I do a lot of family history, and I'm also lucky to come from a long line of storytellers. And I've known enough of my storytelling relatives to be front and center as they're telling stories. Others have been passed down to me especially by my mom, who is a real storyteller herself. And there's a lot going on in this country right now, and we're drawing broad brushstrokes about a lot of things, people, assumptions, and all that. And so I'm even more than ever passionate about, let's make sure that people, no matter where you live, who you are, that they understand that this country is made up of a lot of different cultures, always has been made up of a lot of different cultures. And it's succeeded because each and every culture has brought what they can to the mix. And so I am not being political in any way. In fact, I really despise politics most of the time. But I do believe it's important that we keep telling our stories, talking about our history, good and bad. History people are people. So that's one thing that's very important to me on a personal level, even though I may not discuss it with anyone other than my history clients. I have a new client that's a good example of this, and I'll give you this. We just started working with the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area Partnership. Now that's a mouthful, but the heritage areas were created by Congress. There's about 34 of them now. And this is the second largest in terms of geographical coverage. It covers all of western North Carolina, 30-something counties, is so many square miles I can't even keep up with it. And their sole purpose of being is to help those counties and the people in those counties, the artisans, the craftsmen, the musicians, the business owners, to bring that culture and share it with the people of America. They run on a shoestring budget. We're hoping we can help them run on a little better budget. But they are very committed to, how do we keep the past in the present, and how do we create a better future with both the past and present as part of our learning. And they're a great example. I think they will be successful, more successful than they've been. And that's one that's very personally satisfying, as well as I think strategically the kind of organizations that we want to nurture in this country.